Hello, my name is Adam Winrich, and this is a video about fire whip safety. Cue the fireball montage. Man, fire whips are cool, except when they're hot. Now, I would like to start this video out with a disclaimer. Whips are dangerous, fire is dangerous, fire whips are super duper freaky deaky dangerous, so crack them at your own risk. This is just a video on YouTube, so I am not responsible for you. What I'm going to try to do is give you all the information I can so you can be responsible for yourself. Also, I would strongly recommend that you learn about fire safety from someone in person. There are classes conducted by flow arts organizations around the world, so I strongly recommend you take one of their fire classes in person to learn how to be safe with fire. One of the most important things when cracking your fire whip is do not crack your fire whip alone. Every time you crack your fire whip, you should have someone with you who is trained in fire safety. That person should have a proper fire blanket or at least have a damp towel with them. That person should also know where your other safety objects are, such as your fire extinguisher or a bucket of water. That person should also know which of your local hospitals has a burn center, and you should have an emergency plan to get yourself to the burn center. So again, do not crack your fire whips alone. Have another person watching you, because it is difficult to tell when you have lit your butt on fire when you're by yourself. It is always important to check your fire whip before you light it on fire. You want to make sure that your fire whip is in good condition. Certain things you want to check would be the cracker to make sure that it is in good condition, that it's not all tied up in knots. Check the thong of the whip to make sure that it is not in tatters. For example, here is a fire whip that is very tattered. This wicking needs to be replaced. This would not be safe to burn. And also check the handle of your fire whip. If it's a handle that fits on with a bolt and a nut, make sure that is all tight. Make sure the handle is not going to come off when you are burning. So again, check your fire whip and make sure it is in good condition before you burn. When it comes to cracking your fire whip safely, it is important to wear the appropriate clothing. You're going to want to wear a tight-fitting, natural material clothing, stuff that's made out of cotton or wool, nothing synthetic, and nothing with a lot of material flowing or hanging about. You see, when a natural material such as cotton burns, it generally turns into an ash. If you take something like a fleece that is made out of plastic, when it burns, it's going to melt, and it can melt onto your skin, and then you're going to need something called a skin graft. That is not great. Also, if you do happen to have hair, you're going to want to tie that up and make sure you wet it down so your hair doesn't burn. I haven't had to worry about that in about 10 years. And now I'd like to talk about what fuels to use with your fire whip. Generally, I use camp fuel. This Crown camp fuel is available from Walmart. It burns very hot, it burns very bright, and it makes a good fireball. You can also use lamp oil. In particular, if you find the burn from the camp fuel is too hot, you can mix it 50-50 with lamp oil. That makes your burn a little bit cooler, and the burn time will also last a little bit longer. And I always store my fuels in a 1-gallon metal paint can. It is important that it is metal and not plastic, because in case it catches on fire, to put it out, you just have to put the lid over the can and put the lid down. If it's plastic and catches on fire, the plastic can melt, and then you end up with a lake of flaming fuel all over the place. And also, the paint can is convenient for fueling up your whip. You just take your fire whip, coil it into the paint can, and make sure the fuel is all over the body of your whip. And generally, I let my whip soak in for about a minute to try to get all the fuel inside the whip. So there you go. That is fuels you can use on your fire whip. Now I'd like to talk about some basic things you should know when handling your fire whip when it's on fire. Now, the fire whips are a lot of fire, so you want to be careful with them. Generally, when I go to light the fire whip, or if I just want to stop cracking and just hold it out, I hold it up away from my body and the handle at 45 degrees so the flames stay safely out here. And when you go for your fireball, I usually use a strong cattleman's crack boom, and keep the whip swinging so that gets a good fireball. It also gets all the excess fuel off the whip. And before you swing up the whip, make sure there's nothing out there in front of you that is important to you, like people or anything that could cause a lawsuit, because well, sometimes when you swing the whip up, little flaming globs of fuel can come off the fire whip, land on things, so you don't want them to land on anything that can sue you. Lawsuits are bad. And also, you want to keep the whip moving from crack to crack throughout the whole burn. It's important to keep the whip moving. It helps keep the flames down, and it also helps improve the longevity of your fire whip. You see, when the whip is moving, the wind will actually put out the parts of the whip that don't have enough fuel to burn. But when you stop moving your whip, when you just hold it, or perhaps place it on the ground and just let it burn, then the body of your fire whip is going to start to burn, and then you're just burning up money right there. You're just burning up your fire whip, and that is bad. So always keep it moving. That helps extend the longevity of your fire whip. And here's a few whip cracks I think everybody should know when they go to crack a fire whip to help keep their fire whip moving. Those 3 cracks would be the slow figure 8 in the side plane, the slow figure 8 in the overhead plane, and you should know how to switch hands. So here are those cracks. Here's the slow figure 8 in the side plane. Go from 1 crack behind, 1 crack in front. Here's the slow figure 8 overhead. And here's switching hands. So those are all effective cracks that I think everyone should know before they crack a fire whip. They keep your fire whip moving. They can help extend the longevity of your fire whip. And switching hands is really important because a fire whip can burn for up to 2 minutes. So you want to be able to switch hands so one arm does not get all of the work out, and then you turn into a hermit crab. So there you go. There's a few basic things you should know about fire whip handling when your whip is on fire. And finally, with this fire whip safety video, I'd like to walk you through an actual burn with a fire whip. First off, right now I'm going to be super duper dangerous. I'm here by myself. I don't have anyone else here with me, so that's totally not recommended. You should have someone with you again for safety. And then, like, I don't have anybody here. That's one of the side effects of being on your phones and on Facebook too much. You're not in the real world making actual friends. Okay, well, let's do this burn anyway. Now, getting into my can of fuel, I pop off the lid. You'll notice I've got this extra pan right here underneath my can of fuel. So that is going to catch any extra drippings that come off the whip to prevent fuel from getting on the ground. Also, just in case it happens that I tip over my can of fuel, I've got this extra pan to catch all of that spilled fuel. I have spilled my whole fuel can before. Not only is that embarrassing, it is super duper freaky deaky dangerous. So now I'm going to fuel up my whip, putting it into the can of fuel. At this point, I want to be super careful not to get any extra fuel or any fuel at all on my body. I really want to keep the fuel off of my hands. I'm going to coil it in there. Now, one thing about fueling up your fire whip, you can actually leave part of the fire whip close to the handle out of the can of fuel. Most fire whips are made from wicking that is absorbent. The fuel will automatically wick up towards that part of your fire whip. So you don't need to jam the whole thing down into your whip. And now I'm going to let that sit in there for just a few seconds while the fuel soaks in. And I'll take this moment to say there are 2 very dangerous times with fire whips. Here are the 2 most dangerous ones. The first one is when you first light your fire whip on fire. To get that fireball, you got to have extra fuel on your fire whip. Now, that extra fuel means if you touch your body with the flaming whip before you do the fireball, you can get flaming fuel on your body and light yourself on fire. That is how I've lit myself on fire. I've actually burned my left hand twice and ended up with second-degree burns. Now, of course, if it's for me, I think of it more as an inconvenience, but it's very sad when anybody hurts themselves. Hopefully you guys don't hurt yourselves doing a fire whip. And the main thing with a second-degree burn, just to get it cool as fast as you can, just run like cold water underneath of it, and then or talk to your local Boy Scout about first aid with burns. And then the other most dangerous part of the fire whip is if you're cracking it and the fire whip, boom, tangles on you. So you want to know how to get out of a tangle with your whip before you go and light it on fire. And also, your person who is your safety should know how to get the whip off of you before you start burning yourself if it tangles on your body. Alright, now the fire whip is all fueled up. One other thing, I'm going to put some leather gloves on here to help protect my hands so I don't burn my hands, being careful not to get extra fuel on these gloves. And now I'm going to take the fire whip out of the can of fuel, being careful to let it drip off just a little bit into the pan. Just like that there. Let that drip off. Then I'm going to cover my can of fuel, make sure the lid is on tight, and move the fuel safely away from where I'm going to burn. I'm actually going to put it here underneath my iPhone because that thing costs $1,000 and I sure don't want that to burn up. Okay, and now I also have my damp towel right there to put the fire whip out. I got a long lighter so I can keep the flames away from me. Lighting the fire whip on fire, here it goes. See if I can get it, there we go. See, I keep it out away from my body. That's a whole lot of flame right there. And now I'm going to go for my fireball. Boom. And now I keep it cracked, keep the whip moving. Here, a slow figure 8. And the sidearm plane. Slow figure 8's the overhead plane. And switching hands. And if I need to stop sometime in the burn, I just hold the whip up at 45 degrees and keep it safely away from my body. You can see how keeping the whip moving keeps the flames down. Now, to put out a fire whip, if I keep cracking it for about another 45 seconds or so, one hard crack will put out the whip. But right now, I'm going to use my damp towel to put out the whip. I'm just going to lay the whip onto the damp towel, just coil it up onto the damp towel right there, being very careful of all the flames. Lay it on there, and then just put the fire blanket, damp towel over the fire whip. Whew, and then it's out. Whoa, and it's back on fire. Stamp that down. And now it's out. Alright, well, there you go. My name is Adam Winrich. Hopefully this video helps keep you safe with your fire whips. Again, this video is not enough. You really should try to seek out someone to teach you fire training in person. And now I'd like to finish this fire whip video out with another fireball montage.